video today about the new books that I just received from ThriftBooks and BookOutlet. As I'm sure many of you know, BookOutlet is the place to shop for your books. Most of the books are used, but they're in really good condition, and I think the most I've paid for a book was maybe like $8, so it's great to do. If you haven't already, please check it out. And as you buy more books from BookOutlet, they give you points which store up, and then you can buy even more books. Book hauls are probably my favorite videos on BookTube. It reminds me of like all those kids that watch other kids open their toys. That's totally how I feel when I'm watching those videos, so I'll never make fun of those kids again because it's definitely what we're doing. So with my spiel out of the way, I'll share with you the books that I bought from BookOutlet and the books that I got from ThriftBooks. The ones that I got from ThriftBooks were books that I've mostly already read, but I just want it on my shelf because they're my favorites. So the first book I got from BookOutlet is Final Girls by Riley Sagar, and I did read this one last year and I really enjoyed it. This story follows Quincy, who was camping with a group of her friends on this little getaway, and she was the only survivor of a massive massacre. And it also talks about two other females who were also in traumatic massacres and survived, and that's what makes them the final girls. And then we flip 10 years ahead of time, so we are going through the two different tenses. And we're learning about what happened with her and her friends, and then what's happening now and how she's kind of coping with life and being a final girl. And it's actually written in the synopsis that one of the final girls turns up dead in her bathtub with her wrist split. And then the third girl comes into the picture, and things kind of get weird and creepy. And again, we're jumping from tenses, but it's done very well in this book. Anything to do with camping or massacres, scary things happening in the woods, it's the perfect setup for any scary thriller. So with that being said, I really did like this book. I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed the writing style, and I actually listened to the audio version of this, and that's why I bought a physical copy, because I wanted it on my shelf. Okay, this next book I didn't know anything going into. I think I just needed one more book to make it so I had free shipping on BookOutlet, and I actually ended up loving the cover, and I do like Abby Glines, and that's After the Game by Abby Glines. Actually reading the synopsis afterwards, I realized that there was so much more to this book, and it's actually about a young girl in high school who is allegedly raped by a very well-known student, and she ends up having a child from the incident, and she moves away, but then she's forced to have to go back to her hometown to care for a sick relative, and that's where another character comes in. I think his name is Rhett, and he gives them a ride home one day, and he starts to think that everything that the town did to kind of disown her was unnecessary, and that her story might actually be the truth in the matter, and that the town was wrong for kind of flipping on her. Like I said, I just love the cover, so I'll probably read this one more like summertime because it gives me like camping vibes. The next one I'm really excited to talk about because I've heard about this book, but I didn't really know what it was about, and I absolutely love the cover. This is probably my favorite cover on my bookshelf, and that's We Set the Dark on Fire by Taylor K. Mejia. This is a YA fantasy, which will actually be my very first fantasy, which I'm super excited about. The synopsis kind of gives me Handmaid's Tales vibes. It's described as a boldly feminist look into freedom, family, and fighting the power. And it's kind of set in a world where women, they have very limited choices to free them from the life of poverty that they have always known. And so this is about Daniela's family, and I guess there's like forged documents to get Daniela with a pretty much secured success in fleeing from that poverty-stricken state. So I'm super excited to read this, and again, the cover is just so beautiful. I just love the colors so much. This next one is another super exciting book for me. I couldn't wait to buy this, and I was so happy that it was on BookOutlet for mega cheap. And this is raved about in 2 of the booktubers that I follow, and that's The REME Daughter by Diane Chamberlain. And this is about a widow set back in the early 70s, I believe. She was widowed by the Vietnam War, and she's pregnant, and her baby, she's told her baby has a heart condition, and they don't know if it's gonna survive. And so her brother-in-law, the husband's brother, pretty much tells her like, well, what if there's a way I can help you out and we can have your daughter and she'll be safe and healthy. Now, I didn't know too much going into this until I watched those YouTube videos, but there is some time travel aspects into it, which is really, really cool. Haven't read too many things like that, so I'm pretty excited. This is probably going to be on my next month's TBR for sure. I couldn't have ordered from BookOutlet without one domestic thriller in there, and that is going to be My Husband's Wife by Jane Corey. This is a kind of a weird synopsis. I don't know if I'm gonna like it, but I do love domestic thrillers. You can't really go wrong with them for me, other than being like not as scary or not as thrilling or surprising. So hopefully this hits some of those. The synopsis talks about a woman named Lily who marries Ed, determined to leave her past behind and start fresh. And she is a lawyer who meets Joe, who is a convicted felon, and she's like oddly attached to him and like pretty much willing to risk everything or something along those lines. And then there's also a part about the next door neighbor named Carla, who was only like 9 at the time, and she shows up at her doorstep one day. A chain of events happens and sets in motion something that can only end badly. So it sounds interesting. I don't know when I'm gonna pick this up, but it's definitely something I would read. The last one I ordered on BookOutlet is apparently the first of a mini-series, and that is Girls with Sharp Sticks by Suzanne Young. This is another like dystopian fantasy YA. I haven't gotten too much into series yet. I would like to. The only one that I kind of started and ended up stopping was Red Queen, the Red Queen series. I did do Divergent and I did do the Hunger Games series, so maybe this one will draw me in enough. I don't know, we'll find out. This one seems to have the same kind of issues as We Set the Dark on Fire, where women have limited freedom, have limited choices, and something happens. Someone's gonna start a revolution and rock the boat, and it's probably female, so we'll see. There are a couple from ThriftBooks that I don't want to talk about too much because I want to do a thriller video. Since thrillers are my favorite, I kind of want to leave room to do a recommendation video on those. So I'll just briefly list some of them. My Lovely Wife by Samantha Downing. I listened to the audiobook. It was wonderful, so I wanted a physical copy, so that's up on my shelf now. Lies She Told by Kate Houlihan. I'm going to talk about that one too. Before She Knew Him and The Kind Worth Killing, both by Peter Swanson. He is one of my favorite authors, as well as Greer Hendricks and Sarah Buchanan, which I just ordered this one because I also listened to the audio copy of this one, The White Between Us. I honestly wasn't a huge fan of this one, but I do want to pick it up again because I feel like I just didn't get enough of it when I was listening to the audio version, so hopefully the physical book I'll have different feelings about it. I know a lot of people preferred this one over Anonymous Girl, which, as you can see, I already have a physical copy of because I love this book. So if I remember correctly, The Wife Between Us is about 2 marriages. All I really remember about this is kind of like a love triangle thing, and like the new wife versus the older wife, and you don't really know who to like, and it's kind of like there's some unreliable narrator in there. But I do remember I loved the writing style, and I think the ending just ruined it for me because it wasn't as thrilling as I wanted it to be. But I do like it, and I am going to pick this up again soon because I really want to remember everything that I read. Maybe I'll like it differently. One of the other ones I bought from ThriftBooks was Maybe Someday by Colleen Hoover. I talked about this briefly in another video because I will pretty soon be picking up All Your Perfects. I absolutely loved this book, and I could not say enough good things about it. It just was so sweet. I just love Colleen Hoover's stories. They're just, they're so sweet. And this one actually, so it's about Sydney and Ridge. Ridge is a songwriter for a well-known band, and Sydney lives across the common area, I think, in the apartments that they live in, and she just is drawn to him, he's drawn to her. They end up making music together. What I really, really loved about this book that made it for me was that Colleen Hoover partnered up with Griffin Peterson, who is a singer-songwriter, and created a album basically for this book. All the songs that were written in this book are recorded by Griffin Peterson, and they're on YouTube. And every time I would read about it, I would go and listen to the song because, oh my god, I just loved it so much. And 2 of the songs, Maybe Someday and Let It Begin, are like 2 of my all-time favorite songs now. I listen to them all the time. I sing them all the time. And they're just, it's just so sweet. Like, they're probably my favorite people in a love story. It's such a good book. I highly recommend it. Okay, I have 2 more books to talk about really quick, and that is my book of the month choice, and then another book that I bought on Amazon because they didn't have it on ThriftBooks or BookOutlet, and it's because I just finished Daisy Jones and the Six. I needed to read more Taylor Jenkins Reid, so I got the 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I'm really excited to read this. I've heard really good things about it, and honestly, I don't know much about it other than that she's a reclusive Hollywood icon, and she's talking about her scandalous life, and it kind of gave me like Marilyn Monroe vibes. I read her biography, and I absolutely love Marilyn Monroe, and I kind of have a feeling this might be where this is going. I just love the fact that Taylor Jenkins Reid writes about famous fictional characters. It's just such a cool concept to me, and I would assume that's very hard to accomplish, but she nailed Daisy Jones. So I'm really excited to read this, and this is actually going to be in my TBR I'm doing my April TBR weird, where 2 weeks was just like random books, and then the next 2 weeks are going to be specific books, but I'm going to talk about that in another video. So I'm really excited to jump into this one. And my book of the month choice, which I've only heard a couple people talk about, but I'm really excited to read, that is The Guest List by Lucy Foley. And all I know about this is that there's a wedding and there's a bunch of guests and someone's murdered, and we don't know who's murdered and we don't know who did it. From what I've heard, it's based in Ireland, and it's on an island, which sets up a creepy vibe. And being that it's on an island, I kind of get those like Agatha Christie vibes from And Then There Were None. So I'm really excited to read this. This will be read in April, and I will talk about it in my next month's wrap up. So that's all I have to share with you guys today. If you have any recommendations based off of some of the ones that I've already read, or any thoughts on some of the books that I haven't read that you'd like to share, please leave comments down below. I'd love to start conversations with everybody and like promote that interaction. Hopefully you guys are staying in and staying safe and reading more, lots more, and I can't wait to talk to you guys again. Thanks for watching. Bye.